And there he is. Welcome, Drayano, to the show.
Hi, Josh. Thanks for inviting me on.
It is an absolute honor and privilege to have you on the stream today. I'm so excited to have a nice, cozy chat, ask you some questions. I believe, if I understand correctly, you have a cup of tea.
Yep, that's right.
Very nice. You have tea.
Yep.
I have coffee, so we're gonna get nice and cozy. And cheers, by the way.
All right. Cheers. Yeah, I guess just imagine it. Yeah. Cheers.
I dinked my camera for you. But yes, welcome in, Drayano. It is fantastic to have you. And for those of you that do not know Drayano, Drayano is a ROM hacker and modder here in the Pokemon world. And he has made some amazing mods of our beloved Pokemon games. Pokemon Fire Red Omega, Pokemon Sacred Gold and Storm Silver, Pokemon Renegade Platinum, Blaze Black 2, Volt White 2, Blaze Black and Volt White, Rising Ruby, Sinking Sapphire. If you have heard of any of these games, played any of these games, then this is the man who crafted these modifications. And so many good memories, and maybe some intense, slightly traumatic memories that you've created, Drayano, but in the best way, in the way that like Whitney's milk tank tormented us as children. I think you've created a lot of those kinds of memories for us in our next step in our Pokemon journey as we take on these challenging games. So thank you for putting together so many amazing Romhacks and really trailblazing so many other great Romhacks out there. You've done a fantastic job, so it's a pleasure to have you.
Right. Thank you very much. Yeah, happy to make the games, I guess.
So I guess before we jump in, do you have anything you want to share with everyone, just as a part of an introduction? Anything that you want anyone to know about you before we dive in? I think I covered some of the bases, but
Yeah, I think honestly you probably said the bulk of it already. But yeah, so just like Josh said, if you played any of the games he listed, Renegade Platinum's probably the most well-known one at the moment. But yeah, Storm Silver, Blaze Black, Fire Red Omega, all those. Yeah, I've made those over the last, I think it's been about 11 years or so. So over that span of time, it's been a fairly long while. Yeah, just wanna thank you to everyone who's played them. So it's been a pleasure to hear people's feedback and how much fun they've had and all that.
Lovely. Cool. So I guess let's dive into the questions here, and we'll see where everything goes. So
Okay.
Just to kick things off, what was your first Pokemon game? Where did your journey start in the world of Pokemon?
Okay, this is a pretty funny story actually, yeah. Okay, so my first game was Blue, I believe. Yeah, pretty standard. I think back when I was pretty sure it was when I was 5 years old. 5 or 6, yeah, I was playing Blue back in the day. The strange thing is that I actually played it on an emulator, I believe, because I don't quite remember how this happened, but so I have an older sister, and she had a friend who somehow gave her that old, an old emulator that had Blue on it. And I remember seeing her, and I was like very, very excited whenever I saw it, and pretty much like begged to play and all that, kind of like a young child would do. And then eventually I kind of got into it that way. So well, I don't know what else to mention, but yeah.
Very nice. Well, my next question that kind of leads into that: do you have a distinct first memory related to Pokemon? I guess would that be that?
Yeah, I suppose it would be actually. I guess technically it'd be seeing my sister play it rather than me playing it myself, because I don't know why, but I very distinctly remember her playing the Erica fight back in Red, I believe. I don't know why I remember that one in particular, but I just remember being very interested in the game at that point. And then I think sometime after that, I kind of stepped into the games myself and whatnot. So yeah, probably answers that question, I think.
Right on. So I'm sure a lot of people have wondered this as you've grown up playing the Pokemon games. have you ever gone through a Pokemon game yourself with self-imposed challenges or rules? Because, you know, a popular way of playing your games, of course, is, you know, through a Nuzlocke or some kind of a challenge. You know, when you were growing up, was that something that you did? Maybe not a Nuzlocke in particular, but did you find yourself not challenged enough by the games where you were like, man, I need to use weaker Pokemon or put a level cap on myself or skip trainers or whatever it may be?
So I would probably say, yeah, I don't think I did that too often. I mean, I didn't really know about the concept of Nuzlocke, I think, until probably my later teenagers, maybe. I can't actually remember when it became popular, but I don't think it was too long ago. To be honest, the game's difficulty has never really bothered me too much. Obviously, it is a bit easy at parts, but I kind of just tend to enjoy the adventure for the most part. But I think in terms of challenges, I guess I did quite like doing a few monotype ones. Because I think back when I actually used to put up YouTube videos myself, I'd do some videos of those, because I think I got some little like mono grass and mono poison ones on there. That was kind of like a fun little thing I like to try now and then. But I think that's about it, really. I didn't really impose much else. I just kind of like playing through the games quite a lot. But yeah,
Monotypes are fun, and poison definitely sounds rough.
a little bit. It was okay in the end, but yeah, some of the weaker ones are pretty awful.
Right. So have you tried a Nuzlocke yourself? Is that something that you've ever done, or have you just viewed from the sidelines?
I have on the vanilla games. I haven't on my hacks though. Yeah, I'm not that great at Nuzlocks because, to be honest, I'm a bit on the impatient side. So what I often end up happening is that I'll make a mistake while I'm like grinding up my Pokemon or something, and then something will just die by accident. Or like I don't really tend to go through like all the documentation about like what everything has and plan it through everything like all the hardcore Nuzlockers do. So it often kind of just turns into a disaster. So
right.
I've yet to try it on my ones because I'm pretty sure I would probably just lose. I probably should at some point, because I know it's a very popular way of playing them, and it'd probably be good to balance around that. So maybe for the upcoming ones I will, but so far, not yet.
That's so interesting, you know, since that is such like a popular way of experiencing your creations. You know, I guess I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here. When balancing the difficulty of your games, you know, because that's obviously a big part of what you do you consider that some people will be implementing their own challenges, or do you kind of just give your own interpretation and then whatever people take from that is just what their experience is? Or do you think about that when you're making your games?
I'd say it's more the latter, yeah. I don't usually balance specifically for Nuzlocke or anything like that. Kind of in terms of difficulty, what I generally do is I'll just get myself like a team of 6 Pokemon and play through the game normally. And then I basically judge it by I'll set like a roster for gym leaders and whatnot, and then I'll see if I can beat it. And if I find I can do it like within maybe 2 or 3 tries, but like with some difficulty, I'll usually declare that to be okay. Yeah, I guess it's probably about it pretty much. I think in terms of like balancing for specific challenges, it's something I might want to look at more in the future. Because I know with Renegade Platinum specifically, I did throw in a few things that were probably a bit on the broken side, which makes Nuzlocke it kind of more of a step-by-step thing. And I kind of like to avoid that in the future, I think. But in terms of what I've done so far, it's generally just a case of, seeing can I beat it myself in a reasonable amount of tries.
Interesting. That's so interesting. That's like part of your philosophy with how you put things together. That's really cool. I have a question from Drew. Not sure if you know DRXX on Twitch.
I see him around. Yeah.
Yeah, he has done a deathless hardcore Nuzlocke of Renegade Platinum. Literally 1 death equals reset. It's crazy. So
like a big challenge, yeah.
Yeah, for real. So I thought he would be a good authority to go to on some questions. And one question that he had was, is the goal of your hacks more to make a difficult game or a fun game?
I would probably say fun out of the 2, yeah. So basically, I guess where it stems from is, so I basically like to make it so you kind of use the full capabilities of the game, I suppose you could say. Because I find with the vanilla games, obviously, like, they're a bit easier parts. You get, obviously, the AI often doesn't use the full mechanics available to it. So, like, it'll probably use weaker Pokemon, less Pokemon, that sort of stuff. So what I generally like to do is like make pretty much everything in the game available to the player somehow, and also give it to the AI. And then I kind of just hope that kind of makes a more fun experience where you can basically just play the game however you like. The difficulty increase is sort of part of that because there's no point having most things available if you don't really need them or anything. So it's yeah, I suppose that kind of sums it up. But yeah, because when it comes to difficulty only, I'd say that's more for hacks like Radical Reds, Emerald Kaizo, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Whereas in my case, it's kind of just a hand-in-hand thing to try and make the playthrough a bit more fulfilling, rather than like soul crushing, so to speak.
Yeah, I think fulfilling is a really good word for it. You know, especially when you like buff some Pokemon in some ways that would not normally be viable for a normal playthrough. There's definitely like a fulfilling, satisfying feeling to that when you're using a Pokemon that you normally wouldn't be able to in a playthrough unless you were crazy. You know, a Pokemon like Kricketune or whatever.
Yeah, so that's definitely the idea.
I think that's really cool. So a follow-up from Drew, I think this is a really interesting question. Do you ever question that you give the player too many resources? This is something that I heard from Pokemon challenges. If you know Jan,
yeah.
You know, the idea of like feature creep, where you know you give so many options to a player that you know it's like almost overwhelming. Or you know, if you are doing a challenge run, you know, to play optimally, you have to go like super meticulous, and it gets like very repetitive in a way if you're trying to literally play the most mathematically optimal way. Is that something that you ever question, or do you think that that's more up to the player to not use resources, you know, such as say like an EV trainer or like Blissey grinding or whatever may have you?
That's a good question. Yeah, so I would say this is something I've been a bit more attuned to ever since I brought Renegade Platinum out, because I know that one in particular has a bit of an issue with this, where you've got like a lot of resources that are given you for free. Because I know, for example, like you get all the starters like just thrown at you really early. There's like a free Belden with a ridiculously good moveset. I think there's probably there's also that egg early game, and I know that can hatch into a Happiny, which apparently Chansey, Blissey are ridiculously good on Nuzlocke, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's I think it's probably something I do need to think about, because my philosophy was generally just let the player do what they want. But there definitely does seem to be a bit of a thing as of late where I think people enjoy being challenged more by having limited resources. I'd imagine like with how big Emerald Kaizo got in particular, because that game has restricting resources as a very big thing. And yeah, I would probably say I think it's something I do need to think about a bit more in the future. I don't want to make it so like you get like pretty much nothing either, because I think there's a fine balance between the AI having way too much over you and not having enough to really have fun with. But yeah, I think there's a fine balance point somewhere. But it's something I want to probably consider in the future, particularly like from a Nuzlocke perspective, where like for example, some people would just use any gift Pokemon whatsoever. Then you've also got some that all depends on location, and it kind of varies depending on the person. But yeah, so I guess yes. So that would be the answer to that question.
Right. Yeah, I think it's an interesting idea because there is no right or wrong to that, and it really just depends on, I guess, what you want to put out there. You know, because there's definitely something to be said to giving a lot of options, but also that idea of like feature creep where it's almost like overwhelming in a way. It's really interesting. I think there is something to be said for what you do that makes it fulfilling, you know, where you do have those options, but you have that other side with like challenge runs and stuff that is sort of a conflict of interest. So very, very interesting to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, it's a tricky one to get right. I think it's kind of hard to please everyone in that regard.
Right. There is no one size fits all, I would think.
Yeah, pretty much.
So another question, this is from one of my mods, Eclipse Site, who says, your hacks are known for their challenge. Yes, they are. How do you decide on the difficulty level, and do you ever have to rein yourself in? You already kind of touched on the how you kind of play test a bit, but how often do you find yourself being like, wow, okay, this is way too hard. I need to slow down. Or is it the other way around?
I guess it's kind of a bit of both, to be honest. I definitely do get cases where, like, I think I'll put stuff in initially that ends up being a bit too difficult, and then dial it back. Like, it's often the case with, say, movesets and whatnot, where I might give, trying to give us any... I have a feeling, like, I guess for Renegade Pattern, for example, I have a feeling that I may have given Roaps Granados Thunder Punch to start with, and then that was, like, kind of just deleted any water type you threw it, because it had a decent amount of speed, for instance.
Ooh.
So, yeah, it's stuff like that. I guess, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a bit of both, I'd say. Because, yeah, so like I said before, with the way I play through it a couple times to check, if I beat it too easily, then I'll also probably bump up some of the moves, or I might swap some of the Pokemon around and whatnot. But I will say sometimes stuff like that can also slip through the net. Like, I keep referring to Renegade here, but that's just because it's the clearest in my head, because it's the most recent. But
Sure.
I don't know, with Gardenia, for instance, Herbozoid has Sludge Bomb, which I think, in retrospect, is complete overkill for that part of the game. But I guess I had something on my team at the time, which meant I could deal with it fine, and then it didn't feel like overkill. But, of course, like, it depends on what team you have, whether things could be an issue or not. So, yeah, it's kind of a bit of both, I would say, I think.
Interesting. Very cool. Very cool. I think my most challenging Pokemon was in your Rising Ruby Sinking Sapphire. I was doing a Soul Link Egglock, and I think it was a Sheer Force Life Orb Darmanitan and Meteor Falls or something like that.
Yeah, I think I gave it to one of the Magma admins, didn't I? Probably.
Yeah, it was like a double battle. That was fun.
Yeah, that does sound like a bit overkill. Did I really put that in there?
I think so.
Yeah.
But that's interesting to hear the way that you go through that. Well, anyway, related to balancing and the changes that you make to Pokemon, what inspires you to make the changes to the Pokemon that you do? Is there some method to this that you've developed, like where you kind of sift through some Pokemon and like you have sort of like a methodology for this, or is it just kind of like, yeah, I kind of want to just make that Pokemon better? Do you like, or do you take suggestions, or do you brainstorm, or how's that process go for you?
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of a mix of all of the above, to be honest. I guess I guess generally what I probably do is so what how I normally start pretty much every one of my hacks is that I'll make a Word document or something, and then I just have every Pokemon in turn. And when I get to them, I'll have a think, like, how good is this Pokemon in terms of competitive play? Is it usable? Is there any reason you'd want to use it above other stuff? And then basically that will kind of decide, like, do I need to give it any buffs? Should I give it a small buff, a big buff, no buff? That sort of thing. And then another thing I often will also do is I'll compare it to similar-ish Pokemon to see, like, what their base stat total is, for instance. Like, I guess Mightyena might be a good example of this. So you're sort of like, you've got Dark type, decent attack and speed, and then it's kind of similar in the way it works, I guess, to say Houndoom, Manectric, that sort of thing. Where I guess they evolve a little bit later than Poochyena would, but they have much higher base stat totals. And then I feel like Mightyena should be able to fit in that sort of mold with those two. So I'll often like give it a bit of buffs to its attack and speed, for instance, and then that means it can, well, it can hopefully stand up to some other Pokemon, rather than being a bit overshadowed by other things. But it often, it will often just come down to, like, is there any real use for this Pokemon? Because by default, there's a lot of stuff in the game that you probably never use, like, let's say Illumise or something, for instance.
I was literally just going to say Volbeat.
Yeah. Volbeat and Illumise are pretty good examples. Like, I guess Volbeat at least has Tail Glow, so it does have a bit of a niche. But yeah, it's just stuff like that too. Like, if there's literally no reason to use it, then I like to try and give it something. So at least if you do happen to pop it in a Nuzlocke, it's somewhat usable. I suppose that's just kind of it in a nutshell. But yeah, so generally just analyze comparative play, compare it to a similar Pokemon, and yeah, generally, like, my philosophy is I just like to make everything at least somewhat usable. That may not always be the case with stuff like, I don't know, like Unknown or Love Disc, which are just so bad. They don't look any good or anything either. So it's kind of hard to really have anything that looks reasonable to give to them. But generally, yeah, I just try to make something at least kind of usable instead of having a ton of completely useless stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of base stats. And then, yeah, typing abilities, that sort of thing. I generally would just compare it to similar Pokemon that I think looks good. Or look at like their Pokedex entries and see if there's stuff listed there that would kind of fit with things like... I'm trying to think of a good example here. It's a type change, I know I do. I can't really think off the top of my head, but... yeah, but generally I'll inspect like everything about a Pokemon and then sort of brainstorm what could I do to introduce this Dex entry into their statistics, that sort of thing. That's probably about it, I guess.
I love that that's how you go about like balancing things, that you like compare Pokemon to like similar sort of like archetypes. I think that's really interesting. I didn't think that there would be that much of a like granular process to that. That's really cool. And also just the idea of like making most Pokemon viable, just usable in general, I think is awesome. And that really goes into that fulfilling aspect of your games. And there's just something satisfying to making a Pokemon work that like shouldn't work. That's awesome. So yeah, taking a step back more to like where you started and how you got to this point, when did you start to think that you wanted to try out ROM hacking? Was there a specific person or like a moment that inspired you in particular, or is it like a gradual interest that you had build up?
Yeah, I think this was mostly a specific person, essentially. So yeah, I guess this story begins, what was it? I think it's back when I was, let me see, probably about 15, 16 or something like that. For reference, I'm 29 now, so this is quite a while back. So I had a friend at the time, who got into ROM hacking themselves, and they were making a pretty much full-on new region game and all that sort of stuff. I thought it was like super cool. And I kind of wanted to have a go at it myself, just because the whole idea about tweaking a Pokemon game and that sort of thing sounded quite fun. But the idea basically for the fact that the way my projects turned out was basically a result of the fact that I wanted to mess with stuff, but I couldn't sprite or anything for my life. And so I needed to think of some project idea that wouldn't involve graphical stuff or anything like that, because I wanted to work on something individually, ideally. But I mean, I had to use the skills I had, which were a bit limited in that regard. But I think somehow I came across the idea of, well, I came up with the idea of just trying to just make the game a bit harder and more interesting in that sense. Because I think the very first one I actually did, I did a really small hack called Leaf Green Omega, really far back in the day. But that was literally just, I changed Gym Leader Pokemon, and that was pretty much it. So I pretty much just got rid of that one from anything I've got, because it's not really worthwhile at this point.
Sure.
But yeah, so I think I kind of tried that, and I thought, maybe I can make a full game based off this. And then I kind of just went from there. And then that was Fire Red Omega eventually. And then that one came out decently popular, I think thanks to a YouTuber I knew at the time, sort of. And then it seemed to do well, and I kind of still had the interest. So then I just kind of kept going. And I guess here I have now, a few projects later.
Heck yeah. So going to Fire Red Omega, that was your first completed released ROM hack, right?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
This is a question from Headbob, one of my friends and Pokemon speedrunner folk. How did you go about making your first completed ROM hack in terms of, that was your first time really getting something out there? Like, what was the sort of the growing pains and the process that you went through, just like roadmap wise, I guess?
I mean, I guess I'll try and answer this. Obviously, it's been such a long time, I can't really remember.
Right, if that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine a lot of it is probably just down to doing research, because a lot of stuff with ROM hacking is that, obviously, there are communities which can help you and such, but a lot of it is just kind of self-research about how to do various things. So I'd imagine a lot of it was first checking what I could do. So I had to sort of discover what tools people used at the time, like There's one called Advanced Map, which I think is still used now, which is like your standard map editor, can affect wild Pokemon, that sort of thing. I found one for trainer editing. I looked a little bit into script editing, though at the time I think I found it quite difficult. So I only did some minor changes, and then I kind of just built stuff based off that, I think. And then I guess I must have gone into it with the philosophy of trying to make everything catchable and trainers harder, but the same as I do with every game, I suppose. And then it was kind of just figuring out what to do from there. I think back in those days, so what I normally do with my hacks nowadays is that for trainers and such specifically, for gym leaders and whatnot, I'll like look through the Bulbapedia entry and see what Pokemon they've used throughout the games. I'll even check the manga, trading cards, that sort of thing, see what's kind of like in their general roster. And then I'll kind of just build up the trainers based off of that. I guess, yeah, I suppose it's back in, I guess, about when Platinum was out, maybe? So there wasn't that much resource, there weren't too many resources to go from there. But I know back in Fire Red Omega, I did have a bit of anime stuff, because I think I gave Brock a Vulpix and Misty a Togetic. So yeah, I kind of just blabbing on a bit here, aren't I? But yeah, it's kind of just looking at stuff, seeing what works thematically and what would be fun, and then seeing what I can do with the tools I have, and then just, yeah, kind of putting it all together, I suppose. A lot of it I kind of just wing as I go on, just based on what I feel like at the time, and then I kind of just progress through the game, making my edits, until eventually you get the finished product.
Fantastic. That's cool that that you look through the Bulbapedia entries and whatnot. Also,
yeah.
Have you seen the map randomizers that people have been doing?
You mean like the Emerald and Platinum Warp randomizers, that sort of thing?
Yes, the Warp randos.
I've seen them, yeah. I've watched, I think I've seen you play the Platinum one once or twice.
Yeah.
I've seen Smallant do it a couple times against other people and whatnot.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's become pretty popular as of late. Yeah, I know one of the people who made the Platinum one, I think. It was like a team of 3 or 4 people, and one of them is on a Discord server I frequent for DS hacking and that sort of stuff. So I've kind of seen both sides of it to a small extent.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was just going to say, it's funny you mentioned Advanced Map, because in the early days of the Emerald Warp rando, sometimes we get like soft locked, or, a gym would be like behind like a door that didn't actually have a warp, or it was like a one-way like trick room or something like that. Not trick room, the trick house. So I actually used Advanced Map to track the warp and realize like, okay, is our ROM broken? So it's funny that you mentioned that, because I still use that to this day, at least for the warp rando.
Yeah, it's still quite useful sometimes. I think there might be a better map tool nowadays called Prori Map. I'm not completely sure of that though. But yeah, Advanced Map still has its use even nowadays. It's definitely stood the test of time for the most part.
Yeah. So building off of that last question, how has your process changed over the years? You've been doing this for so long, so I'm sure that you've learned a few things and maybe streamlined some things. Compared to Fire Red Omega, now you're onto Black White Redux, or rather Black 2 Redux, and Sacred Goldstorm Silver V2. How has your process changed over the years?
Makes sense, yeah. So I will say just quickly about Black 2 Redux. While I'm helping with it, I'm not like the person sort of sorting out the trainer teams of wild Pokemon with that one. That's Apex Cubed, who I'm working on with it. But this does apply to Sacred Gold and I guess the previous hacks that I've done and such. I mean, generally, I guess I think I'm a lot more moderate in terms of what I do as well, for the most part, because I think I did things I was maybe a bit more crazy with what I would change in terms of trainer stuff back in the day. And I did stuff that nowadays I probably consider a bit weird. Like, I remember, like, Fire Red Omega, for instance, I just threw wild grass in Viridian City, for instance, because I thought it was cool at the time, even though nowadays I probably consider it to look a little bit on the trashy side, if anything. But I guess it is good for non-talking characters, that sort of thing. I guess it's a bit hard to say how it's changed. Like, I guess I just look at things more in general. Obviously, I've got newer games as well to pull things from now. Like, with trying to do Hot Gold, for instance, I've got, like, Let's Go Pikachu to look out for the counter leaders, that sort of thing. I've had Black and White 2 to look at the trainer teams that come out of there from the Pokemon World Tournament, that sort of thing. So I can sort of make stuff more focused on how the games would be, pull stuff on newer generations. And I don't think if anything's really changed aside from that. I definitely do a lot more scripting as well. Like, I think back in the day, well, no, I suppose Fire Omega did have scripted legendaries too. So, I'd say, I guess basically I've just managed to refine my processes a bit more, but for the most part, it's probably not changed too much at its base. I do a lot more documentation, I think, than the early days. But beyond that, I'd say it's not too dissimilar. It's just my ideas of what would make a good game have probably changed a bit from the early days.
That's so interesting. That the process is similar, but just the way that you sort of envision things has maybe changed. That's cool.
Yeah, pretty much. You can kind of see it a bit, like with how things change. Like you've got random bits of grass in Fire Omega. Blaze Black has a bunch of double and triple battles, and that's the only way you can play the game, as opposed to it being like a toggle or something. Yeah, just stuff like that. I kind of get different ideas over the years.
Yeah. Okay. So, more reminiscing here. On a technical level, not like balancing and those kinds of things, but in terms of more of the under the hood stuff with your hacks, what has been the biggest challenge you've faced when making your Romhacks? In terms of maybe a script edit that you did, or just something that you implemented that you were like, wow, that was really hard, but I did it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good question. Yeah, I mean, basically, so pretty much everything I do is not that complicated, I would say. There's a whole section of ROM hacking if you want to get really deep into the code, like that. If you want to work with the raw assembly code that's under the hood, and if you want to do like any real big engine changes, you'd have to work with that. And I've never really known how to do that, nor have I really found the time to learn it properly. So I'd say there's a whole lot. If I wanted to, like, I don't know, implement the Gen 6 experience share or something, I wouldn't be able to do that because it's just beyond my skills. And even editing abilities can be quite difficult because a lot of that is sort of in the underlying code. It's a bit easier in Gen 3 nowadays because nowadays you can use raw C code thanks to all the decompilation by the prep group. But since I work in Gen 4, we don't really have that sort of thing just yet. So there's a whole host of stuff that I probably like to do, like new abilities, for instance, that I kind of have to rely on other people for, or something like that. I guess in terms of stuff that I've actually implemented that was difficult. I mean, I was pretty proud of some of the stuff I did in, I guess like the Blissey Trainer was pretty cool, for instance, because that was the one in Renegade Platinum that you can like talk to, and then you pick your level or EV train against it, that sort of thing. Well, I guess technically it's not really complex at its core. It's kind of like being able to combine a lot of stuff that's in the game already to create something new, because basically I'm sort of restricted based on my own skills in using the resources that the game already offers. And then I was pretty happy that I was able to form something like that to help the players out, and it was still using pretty much everything that was in the game already. I guess there's stuff like the Arceus events too. I think I had like in Storm Silver, Renegade Platinum as well to some degree, which are pretty cool because there was a lot of stuff going on. Basically, anything involving with scripting is probably a bit more interesting on a technical level because a lot of the other stuff is kind of just data entry. But then when it comes to making new events and whatnot, there's a bit more involved in terms of thinking what you can do and what you can manage just based on what the game already has, and just twisting it into something new that can still be pretty cool. But at the same time, there's also stuff like, for instance, assigning music to legendaries, which, while you wouldn't think it'd be hard, is actually really difficult. Because it's some like table that's under the hood at a specific memory location, and you just can't edit it without moving a million pointers. It's just, yeah, there's a lot of small things like that.
I wouldn't have thought that would be a challenge.
Yeah, there's no real way to do it. It's kind of just hidden away in some code that's just transformed into lots of different little assembly instructions, and just you can't really read it unless you really know what you're doing. I know a lot of people like that, but I'm unfortunately not one of them. So
sure,
I gotta do what I can.
Yeah. Okay, so same question, but on a more abstract level, what has been the biggest challenge that you faced? Like balancing a specific gym leader or a Pokemon, or something like big picture, like, you know, one of your hacks maybe specifically you faced a challenge with like what vision that you had, or trying to appeal to a specific audience maybe. Is there something in particular that you struggled with that isn't really a technical thing, but more just like a creative decision that that perplexed you?
It makes sense, yeah. It's a bit of a tough question, that one.
It's very big picture.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything that really comes to mind like that. Um, I mean, I know I've definitely had issues before where, like, I've had a release, for instance, of, like, first release of a hack, and then it turns out there's a bug in it, and then I have to quickly throw out a patch to fix that, and then, oh no, there's another bug, so I have to do that again and again, and that tends to be a bit annoying, and I always feel a bit ridiculous, like, having to keep saying on my Twitter, like, version 1.1 is out, version 1.2 is out, and that sort of thing. Although that's probably my fault for not using beta testers. That's probably something I should start doing. Um, so I guess that's one thing. I guess in terms of game design, I gotta admit, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head that was really difficult to do. Um, I guess it's, yeah, like I said, it's kind of just thinking about using resources that I have. But in most cases, rather than start from an idea and dumb it down to work with the game, I'll think what I have to use in the game and then build something up based off that instead. So I don't generally run into these sort of scope issues just because I don't really let myself get there in the first place because I just do stuff based on what I know I can do rather than the other way around. I guess if that makes sense. I don't know.
I get what you mean. I get what you mean. So I know this is a hard question, or maybe not. This might be like trying to ask a parent like what their favorite kid is. What is your favorite ROM hack you've created? And you could use the word favorite in any way that you want, like the one that you're the most proud of, or the one that you think is the most fun to play, whatever. Just if someone were to ask you that question, what would your answer be? Or would it be like, no, they're all my favorite?
Well, I mean, I'd probably say Renegade Platinum is my favorite at the moment, just because it's one, the most modern, two, probably the most popular right now, and three, it's just got a lot more features in it, such. Actually, yeah, that reminds me. Going back to that question about the technical victory quickly, getting Fairy type into Platinum was probably the best thing. Let's think of it. I forgot about that. Because I had the resource for how to put it into Heart Gold, but there wasn't one for Platinum. But I managed to get it to work in Platinum, and I was really happy that came out correctly. So, yeah, I guess, yeah, I'd say Renegade Platinum generally, just because it's kind of, so far, it's probably like my magnum opus, I guess you could say, of what I've done, because it's kind of got everything that I've learned so far. But as a result of that, that's also why I want to update my Sacred God and Storm Silver hacks to also include a lot of that stuff, because the Gen 4 games are really similar under the hood. And I'm hoping once I get that out eventually, then that will be my favorite instead. But I would say it's Renegade for the moment. The other games are all okay. Like, I would say I don't really remember them as well. I probably don't like Rising Ruby and Fire Red Omega quite as much, just because Fire Red Omega is really old, and Rising Ruby is... I couldn't do as much with it, because at the time, and possibly still, I'm not really sure, it was a bit limited in what you could do on 3DS, because scripting wasn't really a thing. But then, yeah, Remplat's my favorite, probably Sacred Gold second, I guess, and then, I guess, Blaze Black 2 third, and yeah, that sort of thing. I guess you only asked me for the first one, but that's kind of the explanation as a whole.
I love the tier list. I think that's great. I guess that makes sense. I was thinking that was going to be like a harder question, but I guess like in the field of ROM hacking, a lot of what you're doing is sort of iterative. So like, the things that you take from one game, you can apply to your next game. Does that sound about right? Or
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you learn things as you go along. Like, I think, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so like, with Fire Red Omega, for instance, I guess I only knew a little bit of scripting, didn't know much. I went on to my first Hot Gold hack, which is not actually Sacred Gold, but it was some old thing I tried. And then I sort of figured out a tiny bit of scripting there, but I didn't know much. And then I made Sacred Gold a bit later. I learned a lot more about scripting at that point, so I could make a lot more events. And then move on to Renegade Platinum. I figure out a little bit more about what I can do. I managed to also get a tool working, a really buggy tool working that I was struggling with before. And then that meant I could do a bit more in that regard. And yeah, just stuff like that. It's kind of just improving my skills, finding out more information, just everything. And also, as a whole, the community will find out more stuff as the years go on. Because there were bits in I implemented in Renegade which weren't discovered at the time I made Sacred Gold. But then people who were like really good at finding stuff will publish their findings, and then I can go, ooh, I can use that, and then I can throw it in, give them credit, of course, and then yeah, it means you get more and more features as time goes on.
Right on, right on. All right, cool. So, changing gears a bit. This is a very general question. We have your favorite ROM hack. What is your favorite Pokemon game? Just in general. As a Pokemon fan.
Okay, so we're talking like, yeah, main series and such here.
Sure.
I always find this a bit of a difficult question to answer because it's kind of a three-way tie for me. So generally, like if I get posed this question, it would be one of Platinum, Heart Gold, or Black 2. I think Platinum just about has the edge over the other two, but it's very, very tight. And then the rest, but to be honest, like I like every Pokemon game. Like, there's no Pokemon game I hate. If you give me one, I'll play it. I don't really care. I enjoy the series as a whole, regardless. But yeah, I think all those are probably my favorite. I'm not quite sure what I put Legends Arceus yet. It's high up there, but I don't feel like the replay value is quite as good as the other games. So I don't know where that'll sell over time. But I definitely like the new gameplay style. Yeah, so generally Gen 4 and 5 would be my favorites as a whole. Yes.
That makes sense. I think, and this leads nicely into my next question. Once like the 3DS came out, I feel like that was a very distinct step forward for Pokemon. Like in my eyes, I see the 3DS and Switch as like the newer era of Pokemon where, a lot of things changed. We had Mega Evolution. There's, more hand holding, generally easier difficulty with some exceptions with the shared EXP share. Like Pokemon X and Y feel so distinctly different from Black 2, White 2. Like Black 2, White 2 feel to me more similar to Pokemon Diamonds than Black 2, White 2 feel similar to X and Y, even though those are much more close in proximity, right?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah. So my question here is, what are your feelings and experiences with the newer era of Pokemon games, specifically Gen 6, Gen 7, the Switch games? Because I feel like for a lot of people that there was like a big like schism when the 3DS games came out, and it's like, Game Boy and DS, those are the games that I'm going to keep replaying, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, you do have one ROM hack with Rising Ruby, Sinking Sapphire. I'm just curious your experience as a casual player, just in general. Have you enjoyed or not enjoyed the, Alola and Let's Go and X and Y, those kinds of games?
Yeah, that makes sense. I definitely know what you mean about the schism. I've seen that amongst some of the DS hackers and such too. Like,
sure.
I know there's one guy who perhaps he says anything after Gen 5 should be deleted and whatnot, which
yes.
A little bit excessive, but yeah, as far as I go, yeah, I still definitely enjoy the new games. I definitely agree that they do feel a bit different. Definitely in terms of how the regions are composed, for instance, like maybe not Kalos so much, but for instance with Valolo and Galar, there's a distinct lack of caves. Compared to the earlier gens and that sort of thing. But I would also say that the newer games also have a lot of quality of life improvements that also make them much nicer to play. And the experience share is a big one, because I know that's been a huge dichotomy. And maybe that's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. There's a big split amongst people. And but to be honest, like I've grown to like it quite a lot over the years. But like while I would say it should be toggleable, I have found it does, the fact that it reduces grinding and all that, it's kind of nice as well. Especially in like a Nuzlocke, for instance, where you need to really bring up your team to speed. But trying to drag a Caterpie along or something by actually having it battle is just a massive pain. I've had a lot of good experiences, I'd say. Like, while I would say like X5, for instance, would probably be one of my lower tier games. It's like, it'd be a Platinum and all that. Platinum, Heart Gold, Black 2 are like S, and then I put up everything else at A or A plus or something, because I still love the games to bits. There's no real difference in that regard. Like a lot of the stuff like Dexit and whatnot, I don't really care about that much, because generally I'll just use my in-game team, go for the game, and then that's that. I'm probably, while I do like completing the Pokedex, I'm not that fussed about not being able to complete a 900 Pokemon Pokedex or whatever. And I'd say I've got a lot of good memories for Alola too. Like Pony Canyon, for instance, is probably one of my like favorite bits in any of the games. The music, the environment, just everything about that is awesome. Galar had a lot of good points too. The gym battles were really fantastic. The whole stadium view was really, really cool, even if the region was lacking in one or two small bits. And then I'm trying to think. Let's Go was like, while a bit lacking in features, it was really polished. Legends Arceus, almost everyone loves, which that one probably says by itself. Like as a normal playthrough, I guess not speedrunning like you said and whatnot, but as a normal playthrough and such, it's pretty fantastic. But I'm kind of just going on a bit here, aren't I? But yeah, the general thing is, yeah, I still really like the newer games. I probably don't like them quite as much as Gen 4 and 5, just for various small bits and how they feel, but I still really like the games. Like I still play through every single one of them multiple times and all that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Going off script a little bit, I didn't even think of this question until I thought of you playing new Pokemon games. Have you seen the sets for the BDSP gym leaders and Elite Four members?
Yeah. The Elite Four and BDSP. I really like the fact that they've really like given EVs as well is a pretty good thing, because you couldn't do that until Gen 7 and afterwards. But
it almost feels like Drayano level difficulty, almost like like Jolly Guts, Heracross, and like I forget, like one Pokemon has like Light Clay with Reflect and Light Screen. Like there were like some pretty competitive sets like in the in-game teams, especially in the gym leader rematches and Elite Four round 3. Like that that doesn't seem like something you'd see in a normal Pokemon game. That feels like a fan-made interpretation.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I just make wonder if it was something Ilka had to do with it, given it's not a Game Freak game per se, and I guess it's new content as opposed to DP for the most part. But yeah, I can agree. It definitely does sound a bit like something I would do for sure. If I had like that much control over Pokemon, I would do pretty much the same thing. I think the gym leaders are a bit less tuned than the Elite Four are, but I think they do still have like random items like type resist berries and that sort of stuff, don't they? It's pretty cool. But, yeah, they worked with the rosters being the same, which, while I do much prefer the Platinum rosters for the trainers in general, it was really cool to see like them, fluff it up with all the stuff to make it quite a nice challenge. Yeah, the BDSP Elite Four is one of my favorites, I think.
Yeah, definitely. The gym leaders definitely had some rough stuff. I know this since I've done some of the speedrun routing. Like I think Maylene had like Big Root Lucario with Drain Punch, and I think the Meditite had the Light Clay, and like their EVs were like crazy. I was like, what are we doing? it was cool from a routing perspective, but
it's a bit of a challenge to get over it, I suppose. I guess just I mean, is it still like just using X special attacks and speeds on a Piplup or something, or do you have to be a bit more involved?
It's a bit more involved with BDSP. It's interesting. We use the traded Kaza, which you know about, right?
The Aberrant Orberg.
You get the traded EXP. It's plus special attack. The IVs are set, which is nice. The interesting thing with the route is that if you hit a single trainer, you're pretty much screwed on EXP because of the trade obedience. You literally hit just the right level for Wake to just barely one-shot Gyarados, but you just barely don't reach another level for Floatzel. So that's like sort of the big aspect of the speedrun. There are definitely a lot of X items, but it's that's like the main piece of it. And yes, as Wartab says, fuck that Meditite. Kudos to Wartab, one of the routers.
Okay, that actually explains quite a lot too, because I think I was watching one of your Shining Pulse speedruns before, and I remember I think you hit like a black belt on route 215 or something.
Yeah.
And I think you reset the game instantly, and I thought it was just because of the time loss for hitting the trainer, but I guess the experience makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
it's literally within I think 10 EXP or 30 EXP. It's incredibly close.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So.
That's super precise. Like I could see, and I guess it has a huge knock-on effect. Because if it doesn't listen in the Wake battle, then you're going to lose even more time by getting knocked out. Yeah, I can see what you mean.
Yeah, 75 EXP. There's the actual number. Wartab knows.
Oof, wow.
So it's stressful. But anyway, so talking more about the new Pokemon games, do you wish that script editing and other ROM hacking tools were more accessible for newer Pokemon games? And would you have any interest in doing more of the new Pokemon games if they were? You know, whatever of the 3DS and Switch games.
Yeah, that's a good question. So Yeah, I'm not entirely sure to be honest, because for the most part, I do prefer tinkering the DS games just because it's a bit less hassle to sort of get everything working. Because I could just boot up the game on an emulator, keep running through it, that sort of thing. Although I suppose nowadays you probably could do that with 3DS and Switch, I guess, because they do app emulators you can use.
3DS is pretty stable for emulator nowadays.
I haven't really tried Citra too much, but I've heard it's improved quite a lot over the years. I mean, admittedly, I would like to make a version of Ultra Sun that has less cutscenes in it, because I will admit, I do have that gripe that a lot of people have, where you have to match all the dialogue. Yeah, I imagine on speedruns especially, and to go through that over and over again must be an absolute nightmare. Yeah, that sort of thing would be great, just to be able to skip it and just set all the things instantly. Besides that, though, I don't really know, to be honest. I think at the most part, I'd only really want to make small tweaks to the newer games. There's also the fact that like there's a lot of Pokemon to work with, and trying to like cram all of those into the routes that there are, as opposed to it being a regional dex, can be quite tricky. Because I guess with Alola, for instance, you've got Ultra Sun, where you've got roughly, I think it's 400 Pokemon in the regional dex and that. We're trying to increase that to 721, I believe. No, wait, that's Gen 6.
I think it's over 800. Or like 793 something.
803, I think it is. Yeah, I think Zero is 803. Yeah, trying to cram all that into the grass is a bit of a nightmare in itself. Especially because if you can't introduce new maps and whatnot, it can be quite difficult to not overflood the areas. I may have had this issue in Rising Ruby, I can't really remember. Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one. I can't say I really, even if I had the tools available, I don't think I would try and tackle them at the moment. It probably depends if I would get that itch later on or something. That would make it a bit of an interesting project. But for the most part, I probably just want to make small tweaks just to make it a bit more fun to play. But I don't think I do much more than just maybe fix a few weird things like Alola Marowak not learning Shadowbone on Evolution, for instance, that sort of thing. But there's also like, there's plenty good enhancement hacks out for Gen 6, 7, and 8 already. So I think anything I do would, for the most part, just be repetitive anyway. Besides, I guess, maybe the extra script events. So it's not really a necessary thing.
Sure. Well, going off of the limitations of ROM hacking a bit, if you could pick one Pokemon game to have complete creative and technical control over, no holds barred, which would you pick to make your own flavor with? You know, they're really, like, let's just say you had a magic wand to just use the base of a game. You know, you just have to work with sort of the engine, but this is like your dream game. Would it still be something on the DS, or would it be 3DS? Would it be Heart Gold and you make the magical version where you can soar in the sky with Latias? Because I don't know if you've seen, there's a mod for that for Emerald somehow.
Yeah, I see that. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's insane. But yeah, what would you pick?
I mean, technically, if it's no holds barred and such, then I imagine the natural pick would probably be Sword and Shield. It's just because it's the newest mainline normal game with stuff. Assuming like I can add in whatever Pokemon I want, and that isn't a restriction, for instance.
Sure.
But I mean, I probably also maybe want to cross it with mechanics from Legends Arceus, just because like the whole catching Pokemon and all that sort of stuff is a lot more fun in that game than usual. I gotta admit, it's a tough one really, because I guess this also depends on, can I tweak anything I want? Do I have like infinite time and all that sort of stuff?
Right.
I don't know if I've really got a dream game per se, but I'd imagine if I wanted to like, yeah, it'd probably be, I'd imagine it would be Sword and Shield, I guess, if I've got access to pretty much everything I want to do. And yeah, like I can see in chat someone's mentioned level scaling. That would also be like a really a good thing to actually throw in the games normally and such. But yeah. I guess you can apply it to any engine really if you've got complete control over it. I don't know really. I guess the only downside is that some people can't play Switch stuff because their computers are too weak, or they don't have a Switch available that can actually play Switch mods. So in that regard, maybe Ultra Sun would be better. But I guess if it was just for what I want, I'd probably want to go for Sword and Shield. Just I guess with expanded decks, so I could use whatever I wanted.
Very interesting. I was expecting Sword and Shield. I don't know what I was expecting, but I know if it were me, I would definitely say Ultra, just because I love Alola so much.
That's right. Yeah, I guess if we're keeping regions intact, then Alola would be a good competitor as well. But having the wild area available does mean you can kind of shove a lot more Pokemon without having to worry about the oversaturation as much.
Sure.
Because like with the weather split and such, where you can just change the encounters to different areas, it's a bit easier. Whereas with Alola, you've got day and night, but you still need to cram a lot of stuff into a small amount of areas.
Right. Cool. Sword and Shield Drayano Ultimate Multiverse Romhack coming to a screen near you.
Maybe in a different universe.
Yeah, and another timeline. So, with Sacred Gold, Storm Silver V2 coming up, and the Blaze Black 2, Volt White 2 Redux coming down the pipeline, I know you said that's a collaborative project more so, but
yeah.
How will these compare to your past ROM hacks in terms of difficulty, in terms of resources available to players? Is it going to be in like a similar vein, or are you looking to tone things down, bring things up, or just fine tune what you've already put out there?
Yeah, so I'd say they're probably going to be most similar to Renegade Platinum in general, but we do want to look at probably toning things down a bit in terms of some of the free gifts and all that sort of stuff, just to, yeah, probably restrict the players a bit more. With Sacred Gold specifically, I noticed stuff like in Renegade Platinum that I'm not too keen on in retrospect. Like, I think I give players evolution stones and that sort of stuff really early on, and it's not like much of a curve where you get to use like the early parts of your party, and it's kind of like maybe a bit too much of a boss rush in some areas. So I'd like to sort of try and address that to some degree. Although I know it's also quite fun for Nuzlockers who like to be able to just like plan for these different events, so it's kind of an awkward balance to achieve. But I do want to reduce being a bit over the top in terms of free stuff. But in terms of features and whatnot, it'll probably be pretty similar to Renegade, just with a few improvements, like a few extra moves on newer generations and that sort of thing. With Blaze Black 2 Redux, that one might be a little bit different because Aphex, who I'm working with, is a lot more keen on the balancing aspect, whereas I'm more of like just letting the player do what they want for the most part. So I think at least the challenge mode on that game is most likely going to be a lot more tougher than my other entries. And I know there's most likely going to be a lot of different battle styles and that sort of stuff, and probably a lot more restrictions in terms of what Pokemon and gifts the player can get and that sort of stuff. So might be a fun thing for Nuzlockers to try in the future. I don't know if it'll quite reach like Radical Red M or Kaizo, that sort of difficulty, but I'm hoping it should be up there. So it should be a nice challenge for people who especially like that sort of thing.
Interesting. The Redux sounds spicy, somewhere in between that Kaizo and your normal flavor, which is always still very hard.
Yeah,
so,
it should be pretty good. I think it's yeah, I've been really impressed with how Aphex has sort of sorted all the stuff out, because it's still like in a similar style to mine, but it's also a lot more attuned to being a bit more difficult and whatnot. So yeah, I think it'll be really good.
Right on. So what inspired you to revisit these past projects that you've released? Are there some like specific new skills you've honed or lessons that you've learned over the years that have inspired you to iterate, or is it just like seeing how far you've come with Renegade Platinum that you're like, man, I want to refresh this to give the best experience possible?
So, I mean, yeah, what you said there is kind of hitting the nail on the head for the most part. So, yeah, basically, Renegade Platinum has a lot more stuff. Like, you've got Fairy type, a couple of bits and bobs under the hood, new moves on later generations, that sort of thing. Just stuff that I didn't really know how to do back in the day. And basically, under the hood, Platinum and Hot Gold are super similar in the terms of the way their file system works. So, like, I can practically copy and paste some stuff if I wanted to. So, a lot of it's like, because I know how to do this new stuff on Platinum, I know how to do it on Hot Gold, and I know I can make a project that's probably a lot better than it was in the past. And on top of that, Sacred Gold in particular, the old version is really buggy. I think it works on emulators, okay, but if you play it on like a flashcard, for instance, you quite often end up in cases where you just can't proceed with the game because an NPC is blocking you, or in cases like there's a new event that if you're playing on an R4, it just crashes the game outright, and that sort of stuff. So it's kind of a mixture of, one, having more features that I want to put in because I know how to do them now, and two, making the game a bit less of an awkward experience to play if it goes pear-shaped, essentially. And then when it comes to Blaze Black 2 Redux, that one I wasn't actually on my radar to start with, but Aphex actually made like I don't know, 60-70% of the project already. And then he approached me about it and asked like, hey, I'm remaking your game. Are you interested in working on this together or promote? I guess promoting this, that sort of thing. And I said, oh, sure. Because, I've had people sort of like ask me before if they can use my games as a base or make small tweaks to them. But this was an interesting time where I basically was given like a really well updated, basically getting Blaze Black 2 up to Renegade Platinum standards, and it was really good. I was pretty happy with how it turned out so far already, and I was happy to just go ahead with the idea. So I've been helping out with the project here and then just to sort of brush up on some parts that I felt might have been a bit weak in some places. It's been a really fun collaborative effort. It's been pretty cool to actually work with someone else who's along the same lines as me for once, because every other project I've done has been completely solo. So it just kind of coincidentally ended up being at the same time, which is why I've sort of got 2 projects on the go right now. But I basically got Sacred Gold Division 2 paused for the moment until I get Redux finished with, and then after that, so I'm going to like focus fully on Sacred Gods, and then I'm hoping to get that out before the end of the year, but we'll see how it goes. Because I've had it like in the pipeline for 2 years or something now, but it's been one of those projects that I've struggled to really be happy with, so I've restarted it a lot. So I'm just hoping I can finally get it out the door. But
Right.
I just really want to prove that like I can get it out, I can make something a bit better, and just a bit less buggy and all that.
I imagine that the V2s, these revisits that you're doing, it's easier to be like hard on yourself because you're getting more to that level of perfection, or maybe not. I feel like if that were me though, I feel like that would be something that I would struggle with.
No, I'd say it's pretty good. Yeah, like there's a lot of stuff that I don't really like that I did in the older version and that sort of thing.
Right.
So yeah, I can see what you mean.
So my final question that I have on my list here is what advice do you have for any aspiring ROM hackers and modders? And I feel like this is a scene that has just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger over time, especially with so many creators out there making videos about and then streams of like these crazy mods, not even just with ROM hacks, but just general game modifications like the Breath of the Wild multiplayer and these awesome fan translations of games, and just overall, like, this scene is so big. I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that want to try their hand at this, maybe spriters or musicians, coders, people that want to put out their own interpretation. What advice would you have for people out there that are interested in this scene?
Yeah, it makes sense. It definitely, it definitely has got a lot of attention over the last few years, and there's lots of YouTube channels nowadays that are very much focused on mods and whatnot, and Twitch streams. So I could see why that would be better. I mean, I guess with Pokemon specifically, I basically would just say get yourself familiar with the resources available, see what you can do, what people you can work with. If you want to do something collaborative, I guess see what's out there already and see how your project would compare to it. Do you really want to do a project? Make sure you're having fun with it. That sort of stuff. Because I guess in terms of like specific places, for instance, like if you wanted to work with Game Boy Advance, for instance, I would probably go visit Poke Community, because the forums there have loads of stuff. And then there's decompilation projects you can get used to, or there's something called the Custom Fire Red Upgrade, I think. No, sorry, Complete Fire Red Upgrade, which gives you loads of stuff. If you want to make a project, Radical Red uses that. And then that can sort of really boost what your capabilities are. Then with the DS stuff, there's like a big Discord server which I'm on, which loads of DS hackers are part of that give you plenty of advice and whatnot. And there's also resources on forums and such. I guess the same probably applies to 3DS, but I'm not really sure where you would get resources for that so much. But there's like programs to edit stuff and whatnot, which you can find in places as well. And yeah, there's also like YouTube tutorials for some things and whatnot. I guess basically just use Google, find the resources. There's usually stuff there for most things that are reasonable expectations for most beginning people. And you also probably need to let's see. I think what's the phrase? You probably shouldn't go too deep though, because if you get too ambitious, you'll probably quickly find that what you want to do probably isn't possible, or you'll need to dial it back quite a lot. Or because if you start and then immediately jump in the deep end, you're probably going to get pretty disheartened. So it's good to keep yourself what's the word? Not measured.
Grounded?
Grounded,
maybe?
yes. Good, yeah, grounded. Yeah, so keep yourself grounded. Don't get too far ahead of yourself, essentially, and just don't get discouraged. It can be a bit of a long road to learn some of this stuff sometimes, and it could definitely seem a bit overwhelming at first in some cases. But there's generally people who will help. You can get there eventually, and then just remember at the end of it, it's all fun. So if you find you aren't enjoying it, then don't feel bad about just dropping it, trying something else either. And I would also say that for the creative ones in particular, sprites, music, that sort of thing, people like that are always in demand for projects. Because there's plenty of people who can like tweak data and quite a few scripters and all that, but the creative ones could be a bit hard to come across.
Great advice.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty much all I can say on that front.
Great advice from the legend Drayano. It's funny, a lot of what you shared there is very similar to the advice I would give to someone that would want to be doing content creation. You know, if you're not having fun, then you can always, don't be afraid to put it down and try something else or try something new to freshen things up. And, also, like, it's so funny, like, use Google is such a universally, like, it's so simple, but it's so, like, I've learned everything in Photoshop and Adobe Premiere just through Googling, like, a vision that I have. And I feel like you can do the same thing for anything, not anything with ROM hacking, because that's less widely accessible, but like how do I edit a map or like this or that, you can get into some pretty good rabbit holes through Google.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so simple and so just like use Google, but like, it's just true, just taking that step and just doing research can go such a long way.
Yeah, pretty much. Just a case of, not getting discouraged as you enter it, I suppose. Yeah, I'll admit with film hacking stuff specifically, it can be a little hard to find things sometimes because it's so niche in comparison to a lot of other things. But generally the same rules would apply, I think.
Right on. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, I see bees in the chat.
Yeah.
I guess mint would probably be my favorite.
Okay, that's respectable. That is very respectable. I'm a strawberry ice cream kind of guy.
Yeah, strawberry's a good choice as well.
It's quite nice. Cool. Well, I think we have a little bit of extra time. Do you want to maybe take a few questions from chat?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. Ask whatever you want, I suppose. Within reason, I suppose.
All right, chat.
Sure.
Be on your best behavior here. We're gonna pick out the best questions from you guys. So go ahead and ask away. This is a mistake. Trusting Twitch chat, man. That's always taking a big leap of faith, but I have faith in you guys.
Obviously, I probably had worse. I got asked to do an AMA for the Pokemon subreddit a while back, and I did that, and half the questions were complete nonsense. So, I answered them to the best of my ability, but it felt a bit stupid. So I'm sure it could be better.
What are Timon and Pumbaa's favorite Pokemon? Wartab, I'm going to ban you so freaking quick.
Yeah, I don't get the reference, I'm afraid, so I can't answer that.
It's Lion King. Like Disney.
I'd imagine Pyroar then. Probably literally on Pyroar, if I had to guess.
You're feeding into him. Don't do that. What's your favorite Pokemon?
So Chandeler's actually my favorite, but I do quite like the whole line, and I kind of like Lampen's design as an avatar and such, which is why I've got it as opposed to Chandeler. But I generally tend to prefer the fully evolved Pokemon. Yeah, I guess that's absolute favorite Pokemon. There's more if you want to know that as well. But, yeah.
Right. This is a really interesting question from Kylie. Have you ever looked into mystery dungeon ROM hacks? What are your thoughts on them, and have you ever considered making one? I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know that is there a mystery dungeon ROM hack scene? I've never heard of a mystery dungeon ROM hack.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's
wow.
really come up during the last year or two, I think.
Wow.
There's like a big editor called I think it's Sky Temple or something like that, which just make things quite not too hard to do. And I know there's like I think the assembly parts of it are also very well documented and whatnot. So there's a lot of freedom in what you can do from what I hear.
Holy, cool.
I've not looked into it much myself. I know it exists, and I've seen some projects based on it, but I haven't really looked into it. And to be honest, I don't really have much interest to, because I'm not really sure how I would change a Mystery Dungeon game in a sort of style I would do. But there's definitely lots of interesting projects on the way or out there, I think. If I'm not mistaken, there was like a stream a while back that kind of like went through a few upcoming projects and whatnot. I didn't actually watch it myself, but I think it was quite an interesting thing. But yeah, I imagine there will definitely be some stuff that comes in the not too distant future.
Have you played like the Mystery Dungeon games?
I played so I haven't played some of the newer ones. I played Red, Blue, Time, Darkness, Sky, and I played the Red and Blue remake, Dungeon DX on Switch. But I haven't played the 3DS ones.
I still haven't played any of them. I mean, like I've played a little bit, but I've never beaten one.
Really? Oh, that's a shame. Mystery Dungeon Sky is fantastic.
Yeah, I'll come around. Have you played the Ranger games?
I played the first two of them, but to be honest, it was so long ago I could barely remember them.
Yeah, I adore the Ranger games. They're I've actually done a speedrun of the third one. It's it hurts your hands.
I can imagine that's a lot of spinning a circle, I suppose, isn't it?
It is, but it's a lot of fun. It's just very Gen 4 feeling. Very Gen 4 feeling.
Yeah, I guess it's one at Euro, isn't it?
Yeah, Zardmain, that question I think we covered earlier, so you could just scrub through the VOD. We actually have the current question at the bottom of the screen, so you can just scrub until you find that question. So feel free to do that. Good question, though. Let's see. I'm sifting through these questions. Have you ever been inspired by Kaizo Romhacks when making certain high caliber teams such as the Elite Four or Special Battles? I guess Kaizo Romhacks and just other Romhacks in general, maybe?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. To be honest, I don't really think too much. In terms of trainer rosters and and such, I don't think I've really looked at those very often, because I know with Emerald Kaiser, for instance, I think that often throws stuff like type specialities out the window in favor of higher difficulty. And generally with my projects, I like to, while making it more difficult, I like to kind of keep it in the theme of the original game, which is like, for instance, why I keep all the gym leaders with their aces, even if they suck, like Roxonics, for instance. So not so much. I would say I might take inspiration from other Romhacks when it comes to Pokemon changes, for instance. Like there's stuff in Inclement Emerald, for instance, where like Buffle Saft has a lot of Pokemon changes, which I agree with, and then I'm happy to sort of incorporate those into my own game as well, where I can. But I think in terms of wild and trainers, I generally prefer to just do that by myself.
Sure. That makes sense, and that definitely keeps it your own flavor. I like to use that word.
And so that fits pretty well. Yeah, it keeps it a bit more unique amongst my own projects.
Yeah.
There's only so many ways you can probably change it, but everyone has a slightly different game design philosophy.
Sure. Another great question from V. Is there a game or a hobby that you enjoy that's not related to Pokemon?
Well, there's definitely a few other games, I suppose. I'll admit, in terms of general hobbies, I don't have that many. I mean, I like a few video games. I like shonen animes. Besides that, I'm not really sure, to be honest. I don't really see a whole lot else. But in terms of games, so Pokemon is my top series. Fire Emblem is my second favorite. And then beyond that, I also love the Ace Attorney series and the Tales of series, probably my next two favorites. And then aside from that, I'll generally play most Nintendo games like your Mario's, Zelda's, that sort of thing. I tend to play those two, but a bit more casually than the others.
Sure. Cool. Very cool. Let's see. Besides the projects you have right now, what's a project you want to try but haven't gotten the time to do? Ooh, are you trying to get some leaks? Leaks? I've tried not to pry too much from you today.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I gotta admit, I don't really have anything on the cards just yet. I've had this Sacred Gold V2 on my mind for so long that I don't want to think about anything else until I get that out of the way, at least. So, I can't say, I don't really have anything else on the agenda at the moment, I'm afraid.
I totally understand and relate as a content creator when people ask like, what are you gonna do after this? And it's like, I want to enjoy the process of what I'm doing right now, and then I'm gonna worry about what I'm doing after. You know, if you're already asking like what's next, it's like, well, let me get done with what I'm doing right now. And you know, obviously that doesn't apply to everyone. That's just how my brain works. So I think I understand how you feel in that regard.
It's pretty similar, I think. Yeah, it's definitely something I've come to learn in the last few bits, because I get people asking me quite often, like,
sure,
are you going to do X game or whatever? And my usual response is saying, like, I'll think about it later, maybe.
Right. Yeah. This guy got some leaks. Yeah, we got the far-fetched, you know, it doesn't even have a leak. Wartip, your emote doesn't even have a leak.
Oh, yeah, it's a wing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a wing. Don't call me out like that. Listen, I had to call someone out for that. We all do it, you know. I get it. Even as someone who is a creator, like I do that sometimes too, even though people do the same to me. I think this is a really good question from Later Manner. What is your favorite boss fight in your hacks and in the base Pokemon games as well?
That's a pretty good question. Favorite boss fight. That's a bit of a tough one, to be honest. I'm not really sure what I'd answer specifically for that. I would say for my hack, in Renegade Platinum, the Elite Four in general, I kind of like, just because I really like the idea I came up with about them having randomized teams, so you don't really know what you're going up against. I've always been pretty happy with that, and I've noticed a few other hacks I think have also incorporated that, because I think Radical Red has like 2 teams for each Elite Four, for instance, as well. So it seems like it's an idea that's taken off quite well with a lot of people. And I know I've got a special little place for the Aaron fight in Renegade Platinum, not the Elite Four one, but the surprise one.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I know that one's caused a lot of people issues.
That fight is devastating, man.
Yeah, I don't know whether to keep it, because basically my idea with that one basically was that it was sort of like a little test fight, for instance, but the idea was that you didn't have to win it, because it's Elite Four member, and like they're kind of supposed to crush you or whatever, even if they do reduce their fighting ability. But then every Nuzlocke in the world ended up using it as like, you have to beat it or you lose, which was not my intention in the first place. But now it means like everyone treats it as like a run killer, which it is, I suppose, especially with that Drapion.
Sure.
But yeah, it's become a bit of a funny thing, to say the least. Then I guess in terms of the main series, what would I pick for this one? That's a good question. I'm not really sure. I do quite like the Lucamine fight in Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun. I always quite like that part of the whole invading the Aether Foundation part, and then having to fight Lucamine because her team is fairly decent and that sort of thing.
You ready for this? This is hilarious. In the speed run, we die to that fight.
Oh yeah, you don't have to win it.
We use Fling when we don't have an item, so it's really quick. You just fling. It fails. And it's we have Hawlucha versus Clefable. Clefable just psychic, dead.
Oh yeah, you use Hawlucha the whole run, don't you?
Yeah, it's so funny because it's such a important part of the plot, and it's like, oh, we died.
Yeah, just skip it pretty much.
So it's funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I completely forgot you could just skip that one. Yeah. Well, doing it properly, I quite enjoy it. But maybe not suicide against it so much, but I can see why you would do that for speedruns.
Right. It's definitely quick. And, you know, with Hawlucha, it's trade EXP boost plus the affection EXP boost with, like, petting your Pokemon. Moxie, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome in, guys. Go follow Moxie, guys. Really appreciate the raid. We're having an interview with the ROM hacking legend himself, Drayano. Welcome in, guys. Go follow Moxie. Appreciate it. I think this is a fantastic question from Relaya. I've never even thought of this. Do you think a Mario Maker-esque game could be successful for the Pokemon series? I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
So successful, sure. I don't see why not. It's rare to get a Pokemon game that isn't successful. I guess it wouldn't be a main series one, but I imagine it would probably be pretty popular. In terms of would it be a good thing? I'm not too sure, just because it's kind of difficult to sort of compress a whole Pokemon game into something like that. Because with Mario Maker, you've got one course, essentially. And then that's kind of standalone. Obviously, with Pokemon, you've got a whole RPG to go through. And I can't really see any feasible way to compress that into a a Mario Maker-esque thing, unless you sort of like, I don't know, get to play some sort of rental Pokemon, for instance, and then I guess do this short trip through that. But I don't know, it could be interesting, but I have a hard time imagining how you could really feasibly build a game like that.
Yeah, I feel like the closest that we would get is some kind of a battle simulator where you make your own, maybe like kind of like how Pokemon Stadium had like the gym leader castle challenge, maybe something like that,
you
where you
could do
build
that sort of
teams.
thing, but I guess the thing is that like you may as well just play competitive battling in that case. So
Right.
yeah, I'm not sure if it would add a whole lot to it.
If they could just get really creative, maybe there's potential. Good question. Good question. This is a question from Greg W, who asks, what would you like to see in Gen 9 and beyond? Good question.
I suppose, yeah, I know it's unlikely, but I'd love to see some more mechanics from Legends Arceus, just because I really enjoyed, like, the flow of that game in terms of, like, how quick the battles are, and just the whole catching thing around having to go into battle, and just the dex completion in general in that game is just a lot of fun. I know it's unlikely, given Gen 9 is probably being developed at the same time, so most likely it'll probably be fairly Sword and Shield-like.
Sure.
But probably that. I'd definitely like to see more teams a la BDSP, where you've got like the more, like the Elite Four, like we mentioned earlier in the stream, like that sort of thing would be really good. I'm not sure what else besides that. I mean, I'm always happy to see more like regional forms and that sort of thing too. But I'd assume that's probably a staple by now. I guess I'd like to see Mega Evolution back, but I feel like that's probably unlikely.
Yeah.
But who knows?
I know you're not the only one. Yeah, so I guess building off of that, good question from V. I know you have talked a bit about your Legends Arceus experience already in this stream, but I'm going to build off of that and ask, do you miss the amount of battling? You know, battling is such a core component of Pokemon. You can't even battle people online in Legends Arceus. I know there's definitely a handful of people that battling is such a big part of the fun for Pokemon for them. I know like Wartab is an example as a speedrun router that, Legends Arceus is fun, but a big part of the appeal being, battling definitely takes something. It takes a big appeal of the game away. Is that something that was like an issue for you, or is that just this is a different kind of game for you to enjoy, or is that just maybe the replay value being less that you were talking about?
That makes sense, yeah. Yeah, so I would say in the context of Legends Arceus itself, it doesn't really bother me, but it's not something I'd want to see in future titles where the battles are so limited, because that is one of my favorite parts about the games. And like, in terms of my hacks, for instance, like I always enjoy tweaking the trainers and kind of making things more exciting, going against gym leaders and that sort of thing. And I guess Legends Arceus has a few battles, but yeah, they're quite few and far between. I would say, yeah, it also, the replay value is, a big thing with that, because the bulk of the game is catching Pokemon, it's going to be the same pretty much every time. And there's not really much variety in terms of what you would bring to the trainer fights, and you could do monotype challenges and that sort of thing, I suppose, but there's just so little places to use them that it's not really great. So, I would say it's not something I'd want to see continue. Like, I love the catching mechanics. I think that sort of stuff is fantastic. But I want to see it combined with, like, more traditional trainer battles and that sort of thing. Okay. Right
on. Yeah, I was talking with Elliot, my roommate, Galactic Elliot, right? He said this is like a perfect game to come out like every 4 years or something. It's amazing, but also like, the battles are definitely something special with Pokemon that they do really well. Also, Turtle Ape, great question. That was already asked earlier. If you guys go back in the VOD, on the bottom of the stream, you'll see the current question. You could scroll through and you could see all the questions we asked. So definitely go back for that one. That's a good question. So yes. Also, mods, if you see any dupe questions, you could just redirect people. Just let them know in chat. I have a question that builds off of Arceus a bit. Something that I'm not sure if you know this or not. The speedrun world just discovered this. It appears that the double super effective moves are no longer 4 times.
Oh yeah, yeah. I heard about this
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah. It seems like they're 2.5 times.
Yeah, I was quite surprised to hear that because I
Yeah.
mean, everything in Legends Arceus seems to take so much damage that I was really surprised to hear it was reduced. But I guess maybe it's just something about the damage formula. I'm not really sure.
Right. And that's a whole other mess. Like they're finally getting the damage formula decoded, and like it's something weird where like levels don't matter as much. It's very interesting. A lot of more complicated things to break down with that, but something like type effectiveness is a little bit easier to just give an opinion on, I guess. Do you think that that's something that they should bring back in future Pokemon games? Or do you think, it leads to interesting scenarios where, like, I think with like Gastrodon against like Rhyperior in the main story, like Water Pulse is weaker than Earth Power or something weird like that. And it's like, that's so like odd. I don't know how I feel about that. Do you know if you have an opinion on that with just from you've done so much balancing yourself, or is it too early to tell?
Yeah, I know what you mean, pretty much. I mean, I guess it's hard to say about seeing it in practice because obviously the battle style in Legends Arceus is just so much different from the main series game. I don't even fully understand it for the most part. Like the whole thing about like agile style and then you get double attacked anyway and that sort of stuff is just really confusing. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. I'm perfectly fine with how it already is in the normal games where it's quadruple effectiveness and whatnot. Although it is true that for rock and ground types specifically, those ones tend to be really hard to make actually difficult in the main series, just because they just fold and obviously the opponents aren't particularly great at switching or anything. But at the same time, even if it was ×3, I guess even ×2.5, they're probably still going to drop pretty quickly anyway. Because like if you use, I don't know, Ice Beam on a Graveler or something, it's probably still going to get one hit knocked out. So I'd say it doesn't really matter too much in the grand scheme of things. I think it's probably fine as it is, but it's hard to really say without seeing it in practice.
Sure. Yeah, there's just so much to unpack with Arceus battling.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
Sorry. Yeah, I guess it might just be a bit more for being competitive. But it's really difficult to say. But I mean, I guess you do get some Pokemon that are not used because they have quadruple weaknesses. But if it's just like a single type weakness that's a quadruple, then like Gastrodon having Grass only, for instance, it's not really that much of an issue, I would have said. So I don't know, really. It's a hard one to say without seeing it.
Yeah, for sure. For any specific updates, this interview is definitely a lot less focused on specific updates for what Drayano's up to. These things are always changing, and I would highly recommend that you guys follow Drayano on his Twitter if you're not already. You post updates when you're able and willing. So definitely go and follow Drayano on Twitter. If you're looking for the latest and what's going on, definitely turn on Twitter notifications if you're into that kind of thing. Definitely go and check him out on Twitter because that's where you'll get the most granular updates. That's accurate, right? That's as far as I can tell.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I don't post that often, but if I've got something to tweet out, I will usually. And it's almost always about game updates and such.
When Drayano tweets is going to be good.
Yeah, I don't use it for all else.
Is what I'm saying. Cool. Well, this has been great. Before we hop out of here, first of all, if you're watching on stream, I'm not done for today, so don't go anywhere if you want to keep watching. But before we head out, do you have any last closing thoughts? Anything you want to share with the good people watching?
I guess generally, thanks for being fans. It's been great to answer some of the questions in chat and the ones you've collected on the Google form and all that. And it's just great to have a fan base that's so supportive all the time. So I couldn't really ask for anything more for just a simple little hobby I've got. So yeah, really thankful for all of it.
It has been an absolute honor to have you on. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I think I can speak on behalf of many people in just saying thank you for everything that you've put out there. You really have created so many memories for so many people and so many good times, so many fun playthroughs. And I know that that means a lot to a lot of people. So thank you for everything that you've put out there. And once again, thank you for taking the time to talk about your history, your story, and some of your thought process. It's been really cool getting to dive into you know, into how those final products come to be and where we are to go from here. So thank you so much, and we'll definitely keep playing and keep challenging ourselves with your crazy games. So yeah, I think that's about it, unless you have anything else to say.
No, I don't think so, because I've already said the closing words, haven't I? But yeah, thanks for inviting me on the stream. It's been a lot of fun, actually. And yeah, thanks to chat as well. Everything.
Happy you had a good time, and definitely go follow Drayano, guys, on Twitter for all of the awesome updates that he will have for the future. And yeah, that's about it. I'm going to go play Hot Wheels. Beat that. Because I just bought that at the retro store yesterday.
That's like an interesting one. Cool. Yeah, I guess have fun with the rest of the stream. And yeah, thanks again for inviting me on. And yeah, I'll see you around.
Yep, my pleasure, man. Thank you. Have a great rest of your evening.
Okay. See you around. Bye.
Bye. There we have it, guys. The Drayano interview. Seriously, big thank you to Drayano. That was a fantastic interview, and really just a cool experience getting to hear the way that the thought process goes for a ROM hacker, and a very prominent one. I know that I've played so many Drayano hacks, so many playthroughs, and it has been it's always just so much fun. So seriously, thank you to Drayano once again.